Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
And now, the stories you may not see on TV. It's time for another episode of All Politics Are Local with your host, Barry Dee.
I am back with another episode of All Politics Are Local, a weekly show hosted by a short but strikingly handsome man, Barry Dee. We are proud to be Chester County's only AM and FM radio station located on the 17th floor at the WCHE Studios corporate building in Westchester on Gay Street. That's West Gay Street, a mere half block from the Sedona Tap House restaurant at 44 West Gay Street. They have 795 reviews on Google and a 4.6 out of 5-star rating. That's right, another shameless plug for one of the neighboring businesses. I hope they appreciate it. Eric, I think there's free beer in our future. So, what have I got today? Well, I have my monologue, 5 minutes with Jack. I think it's closer to 8.5 minutes. That man can talk. And my in-studio guest today is Mark Walsh from Irish Eyes, a local legend in independent news reporting. I have been a big fan since discovering this Facebook page during the Cavalcante crisis of 2023. Today, the one and only Eric Clambera is at the boards. And would you believe this show, he makes it hum like a finely tuned sewing machine.
That's pretty hard to believe.
Yeah, I was afraid you were going to say that. Would you believe it runs like a 1972 Plymouth Duster with 300,000 miles on it? Look, the bottom line is this. There is no I in team, and me and Eric, well,
we are two wild and crazy guys.
It's that time of the show where we head back in time, going to that time machine, to a place where the calendar has commercials where poking fun of something wasn't such a big deal. I mean, it hurt somebody's feelings, but we really didn't care. They could suck it up and move on. Being politically correct was just starting to become a problem back in the early 2000s, and Bud Light, well, they had some great on-the-edge commercials. My, how things changed. So let's go back a quarter century and hear how it once was.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius.
Real Men of Genius.
Today we salute you, Mr. Next Day Carpet Installer.
Mr. Next Day Carpet Installer.
Because when we're jonesing for carpet, we're jonesing for it right now.
Totally jonesing.
Thanks to you, we have absolutely no problem buying carpet over the phone, sight unseen.
Just pick up the phone.
A near miracle. An entire basement of wall-to-wall shag in less time than it takes to order a pizza.
I like pepperoni.
Your motto, if you're a payin', I'm a layin'.
Oh, yeah!
So crack open an ice-cold Bud Light, king of the carpet men. You not only go the distance for us, you do it wearing knee pads.
Mr. Next Day Carpet Installer.
Bud Light Beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
That sounds just like Bob Wagner's flooring over there on Westchester Pike. Another shameless plug for a local business. And now, it's time for my monologue.
Good morning, Vietnam!
It's Chester County. How many times do I have to tell you it's Chester County? You know, hired in a vet, that's what I get. Anyway, that's just one job for the day. This is the official Season 2 and Episode 5 of my show, and I'd like to thank my 8 adoring fans, and I promise as soon as this show's over, I'll let you out of the basement so you don't have to listen to my show on that Radio Shack transistor radio anymore.
Oh, boy.
Last week, I spoke about the homeless we have on our streets in Westchester, and the St. Agnes Catholic Church in Westchester has been, they've had this food program that for many years has been serving 1,000 people a week. These are both homeless and those that can't afford food due to the change in the economy over the last few years. St. Agnes has had a problem, and that is that the program involved people preparing food in their kitchens, and they bring it to the church for consumption. That problem is that the kitchens where the food is being made is not Chester County certified. Therefore, not allowed. And this bothers me and many others because it's free food. Nobody's making the people eat it. There's no intent to make people sick. Furthermore, there's no history of that ever happening, and I hope this gets resolved soon. And I want to emphasize that this is a regulation issue. The health department is merely enforcing the regs. This situation also made me think about where the homeless problem has come from. The way I see it, for the most part, homelessness is broken down into a few categories: mental illness, drug addiction, and those two might be together, and finally financial, which can be caused by medical bills, unemployment, a combination of the two, or other financially distressing situations such as a divorce. All are terrible situations, and any one of us could be there with the switch of a circumstance. The homeless problem seems to have gotten out of control in the last few decades. In the 70s and 80s, I just don't recall the amount of people on the street that there are today. Now, is it because we were a county backwater in the 70s and just starting to really expand towards the end of the 80s into explosive growth that Chester County has had for the last 35 years? With more population comes every type of group. But I find it goes further than that. In the 60s, the Joint Commission on Mental Illness and Health, a federal organization, published its findings called Action for Mental Health. This document detailed inadequacies in the National Mental Health Services and called for improvements in both state mental hospitals and community mental health care. And in 1963, Congress then passed a bill which sought to decrease the number of institutionalized individuals by incubating self-sufficient and local mental health care centers. President Kennedy signed this into law. And now all of this seems to make sense, but it was optimism without the infrastructure. But the institutions didn't collapse overnight. For example, in Pennsylvania, since 1955, the Commonwealth has closed more than 10 state hospitals and has cut its average daily number of patients from 41,000 to 1,500, a decrease of about 96%, with the dramatic drop happening after 1980. You see, in 1981, Congress passed another bill to shift the responsibility from the federal government to the state governments, signed in by Ronald Reagan, which makes sense. The state would be better to handle that, so they sent the funding to the state. Now, here's an interesting one. Pennhurst up in Spring City, most of you know it for the Halloween haunted house thing. That was once a mental hospital, and it was closed after the discovery of abuse and a lawsuit, and in 1987 it shut its doors after a ruling that, in essence, said keeping people in a facility was unconstitutional. So starting in 1978, the patients were moved to a small community homes called the community living arrangements. And these settings supported 3 or fewer people with 24-hour staffing if needed. This process of deinstitutionalization required 9 years and included discussion of treatment plans with each person and family. More recently, and also close to home, Norristown State closed its civilian section, and Hamburg State Center up there, Berks County, did the same thing. Both facilities placed the patients in community-based homes. Now there is becoming a broader belief that institutions are actually a better way of caring for the mentally ill. Without a centralized location, things have become more difficult for those that need help. There's a frustration among families that have a loved one that needs help because, well, many just can't find that help. And where do some of these people end up? Incarcerated. A Penn Live investigation in 2015 found that nearly a third of Pennsylvania's 87,756 inmates had a mental illness on an average day in 2014. And of those inmates, about 1/3 of them had serious mental illness. And that would be defined as the most chronic and debilitating of mental disorders like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Many of them could have been homeless, wandering our streets before they ended up committing a crime and in jail. There's a term for that. It's called from institution to incarceration. Innocent people get hurt, and mentally deficient people end up in jail. It just becomes a different kind of institutionalization, right? So much for saving money. It looks to me like just shifting the money with tragedy along the way. Look, I don't have the answers on what to do. I'm not a smart guy. I'm just trying to understand why we have so many people in the streets, living in tent cities along the Schuylkill River, among other places. All of this costs money to resolve until the right people change their priorities. Are you listening to me, elected officials? Which they don't change priorities until that issue affects somebody personally. Then things ain't going to change. We don't live in a perfect world, and there never will be. But there will always be homeless, and it can be mitigated to some amount. It's always called an epidemic, but it seems to me it might have been caused by the deconstruction of what was working instead of fixing what we had, however flawed it might have been. Look, I get it. There's only so much money to go around, but something has to be better than what we have now for the termed mental health crisis, which contributes to the homeless crisis, which leads to the hunger, which St. Agnes and its team of volunteers fight to do, even against the odds of governmental regulation that just doesn't make sense. So, thank you to St. Agnes. Thank you to your volunteers, which include Dan and Michelle Truitt, and anyone else who helps around the county with whatever group you belong to. You are truly angels that sacrifice your most precious resource, time. Finally, as an update on my $5 bet to any county commissioner that we will never recover our $11 million spent on the bogus COVID test kits back in 2020, that was some 5 years ago, that is part of a lawsuit currently. Well, by the way, before I say anything else, I have to apologize for the dollar amounts I claimed. See, it was $13.29 million of a $20 million contract that was paid out, not $11 million like I claimed. Anyway, the rest of the bet was that they would, that when they lost that bet, which they would lose, and even if they don't bet me, they're going to lose this case, or the company's going to go bankrupt and there won't be any money to pay them. The agreement was that I set up in that was that they'd have to come on my show and talk about the issue, and, well, is it any surprise why no commissioners put up their $5? Yeah. Crickets ain't going to put up $5 either. Then on the same show, I bet another $5 that none of them would take the bet, but apparently all the listeners out there agree with me and wouldn't take that bet. So thanks for the confidence in my prediction. By the way, the commissioners at the time of the COVID test kit debacle were Marianne Moskowitz, Josh Maxwell, and Michelle Kitchline. Moskowitz and Maxwell were reelected in 2023. Figure that out. And as a side note, the information about the test kit's overinflated positive results, well, that was discovered through right-to-know requests fired by West Goshen resident Margie Swart. The discoveries were not made by any county officials.
Funny situation, ain't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my monologue for the day. I see Eric went back to the monologue close music that makes me want to head over to the Cracker Barrel right after the show. You know the one? It's there on Business Route 30, right near Downeytown. Right next to Jeff D'Ambrosio Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Volkswagen. Which is a stone's throw away from the Texas Roadhouse. Just a couple shameless plugs for local Chester County businesses. Let's take a quick break and pay some bills ourselves. And we're going to come back with 5 Minutes with Jack.
Barry Dee is back with All Politics Are Local.
All right, it's time for that segment of the show where a guy I used to work with came back on the air with me. It's 5 Minutes with Jack, and Jack gets to talk about, well, what Jack wants to talk about. Good morning, Jack. How are you today?
Barry, doing quite well, and you, sir?
You know, I just can't complain. It has been a warming trend after that cold weather. Ran out of propane the other day. Called my propane guy, said we had plenty of propane. Then we got the cold snap, and I burned up twice as much propane. So it went from 2.5 weeks of propane down to about a week. Ran out. So, yeah, that was my life a couple days ago. But everything's better now. I got propane. I was able to get the furnace running, and life is good, Jack.
Very glad to hear that, Barry. Speaking of good, our new executive branch leader, the president and CEO of the country, has been doing a tremendous job in his first week of removing criminal, illegal aliens from the country. I understand there was a new edict that they're looking for a minimum of 1,800 a day to be removed from the country.
You know, I love when somebody keeps a campaign promise, especially if it's one that I agree with. But the most important thing is putting promises into action, ones that benefit the good of all the citizens, or at least the majority of them. And I don't see a downside to deporting illegal criminal. I mean, look, everybody's a criminal that comes in, because when it makes me crazy when I hear people say they're not criminals, they're just here illegally. Wait, what? I guess I missed that part. How does this work again? But the people that are being rounded up, from what I've seen, maybe I'm wrong, these are some bad people, like your Starbucks buddies.
Certainly. And you did hear the report that the head of the Starbucks International Crime Unit.
That is called, what are they? The Starbucks gang out of Venezuela?
Yes, Tres Lengua Agua.
Yes, those guys, the ones that turned out didn't take over one apartment building. The government out in Colorado and Aurora said they haven't done that. And then they said, well, it's only been one building. It's not multiple buildings. Then it turned out to be two buildings. How do you trust your government officials that you voted in when first they ignore it, then they lie about it, then they lie about it again? At what point do you finally say, you're liars about everything, get out? If any of those people get voted in, any of those leaders in Aurora get voted in again, those people out there are dumber than dirt. In fact, I know dirt is smarter than that if they do that.
Barry, you hit on a very operative thing there, and it's trust, and having trust in the government. And the primary responsibility of any government is to protect its citizens first.
Right.
And if you can't keep the border and keep people safe, you have no trust in the government. And I've always heard that people do as the leader does. It is refreshing that our executive branch is implementing these corrections, and they're corrections, to reinstill trust into our government. I certainly hope that it flows downward to our state and local leaders as well. We need leadership to solve this problem and reinstill trust. We certainly can.
You know, Chester County is a sanctuary county.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yes, it is. It is a sanctuary county. They have said that before. It is a sanctuary county. So I'm going to be interested to see how that goes when the feds come knocking on the door here in Chester County.
Well, I certainly don't think it'll take long once some of these people that are trying to obstruct ICE or the Border Patrol or whoever is, federal marshals, whoever's grabbing these people up, whoever is tasked with doing that job, anyone that tries to obstruct it, whoever it is, I certainly hope that the proper legal remedies are applied.
I should hope so too, because it's not about, they didn't write new laws. The laws were there. They just weren't being enforced. And that's unfortunately what people don't understand. You can have all the laws you want. If they're not enforced, you have third world countries. They're picking and choosing what laws they want to enforce. And I'm not saying, in the words of Archie Bunker, I'm not saying you have to be like German in the enforcement of your laws, but you certainly shouldn't be Puerto Rican in it. And which was a funny line from All in the Family, because it shows the difference between the German way of doing things and the way the Latin American countries handle things. And we're not Latin America. That's the thing. There was some wisdom with Archie Bunker, who was also known as America's favorite bigot, if you remember.
That's true.
I understand the picture he was painting in that, because laws are not there to reward one's friends and punish one's enemies. They're there to be applied to protect the people. There are laws out there that are laws that don't protect the people, and they're there to be a problem. But look, the bottom line is, as you said, this is about protecting our country.
It certainly is, Barry. And I see this as happening in three phases: sealing the border, so you're stopping the inflow, then issuing deterrence, which I understand that President Trump did this week by stating that he's reopening Gitmo. Could you imagine being someone in a third world country and thinking that there is a chance, if I enter into the United States and commit a crime, I might very well end up in Gitmo? That is quite a deterrent.
Oh, absolutely. That's worse than the country they came from.
Exactly.
Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. El Salvador said that they'll not only take people from El Salvador back, because they're doing the MS-13 people, they'll also take the Venezuelans and they have a prison that if people out there listening to me have never seen what El Salvador has done for their prison, they're putting people in for life forever. These are murderers from MS-13. Those people are in the jungle, in a military zone. Even if they escape, they'll never survive outside of it because it's hundreds of miles of just thick jungle after that.
Well, we certainly need a deterrent to stop the inflow so we can concentrate on removing those that shouldn't be here that already reside in our border.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And I'm hoping, look, there's a lot of bad people out there, criminal gangs. We had illegals that were exploiting children that were prosecuted here in Chester County a couple years ago. Bad news. These were young girls. And this has to stop. This has to stop.
I think we have the right people in charge that are going to implement common sense and implement a plan, multifaceted. And my hope is, Barry, that all Americans can regain trust in their government to do their first and most important thing that they're supposed to do is protect its citizens.
Totally agree. Let's follow this up, Jack, and see how far this goes. I'm impressed with it. I'm also equally impressed with the fact that Colombia decided to cooperate with President Trump. Of course, they flagged off the planes at first, but then all of a sudden the Presidente of Colombia changed his mind. Apparently there was just a mistake, and they've since taken their Colombian bad people back because, they need to keep their house clean. So congratulations to the Colombian president for realizing that, he needs us more than we need him.
I think it was an excellent show of proper diplomacy.
Totally agree. So let's see how this goes over the next few weeks. We'll talk about this again, but I think that the streets are going to become safer and our children are going to be at less risk. Yeah, as it was said once by Chris Rock back in 2006, it's gotten so bad with the gangbangers. It used to be, well, you can play from this block to this block. Then it was from this gate to this gate. Pretty soon, the kids are on one foot hopping and spinning in a circle. That's where we've gotten. That was 2006, Chris Rock was talking about that.
We might have to bring back some of the original early PSAs that Chris Rock used to issue.
Oh, my God, yes. Like how not to get your beep kicked by the police. Yes, I believe that's going to be fitting. Hey, Jack, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk again next week.
Always a pleasure, Barry. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always good talking with Jack. And I have one guest alone today. He gets the lion's share of the show. My guest today is Mark Walsh, and you may know him as Irish Eyes, whose Facebook page brings local news quickly to the residents of Chester County. And I personally became a fan of his, as I said, when the Cavalcante manhunt was going on. This guy was everywhere and continues to do the same even today, except when he's taking a short break from his reporting to sit down with me and talk about what he does. Now, I am merely one, and my wife is also one, of over 40,000 followers he has on Facebook. And you don't get that unless you're doing something right. I assure you of that. I normally have introductory music for my guests, and this is what I came up with for you today on this thing, Mark. Now, I originally thought of Don Henley, Dirty Laundry, but you don't seem to be that type of guy. You just want to get the news out to the public. You aren't looking for a gotcha story. You're looking to get the news out there to help the people. So that one wasn't going to work. So then I remembered this one.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round young virgin.
Okay, so that one was the stereo one, and I didn't know if our studio would pick that up. I may have Eric try that again. I had to do one in mono also because we're AM and FM. And what Simon and Garfunkel did with this is a song from 1966. They took the combination of Silent Night with a fictional newscast, not meaning that the news wasn't fiction. It just wasn't an actual newscast. The purpose of the song was to show that while there were things going on out there, there were other things happening in the world where the people may have no knowledge of that very important and life-changing
news that was happening. And it was produced in that newfangled stereo, similar to what the Beatles did, which was to use one channel for specific things in the song and the other channel for other things. In this case, Silent Night is mostly on the left channel, and the news broadcast is on the right channel. Now, Eric's flagging me. Let's try it again, see if it works on the mono. There you go.
In Chicago, Richard Speck, accused murderer of 9 student nurses, was brought before a grand jury today for indictment. The nurses were found stabbed and strangled in their Chicago apartment. In Washington, the atmosphere was tense today as a special subcommittee of the House Committee on Un-American Activities continued its probe into anti-Vietnam War protests. Demonstrators were forcibly...
So you can see how striking that is, the contrast, right, on that, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where you're there. A lot of people, you're bringing news. First of all, thank you for coming on this show. Like, I'm a huge fan, man. I'm fanboy here. I really am.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And you are bringing news to people that don't read the news. They don't get a newspaper. A lot of times they don't watch TV.
Yep.
But they're watching you, man. You got this stuff going on, and you're reporting these things that isn't being found in the Daily Local, or maybe eventually they pick it up. It's certainly not going to be picked up by the Philadelphia Inquirer. Locally, it's become a barren wasteland. There's just not a lot out there. That's what I try and do with my show, talk about politics. And, of course, all politics being local, what you're doing is this is a very important thing, because it is news, which carries political value in the fact of impact that happens to people. If it happens to people, chances are somewhere politically something has been impacted by it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying by that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't you tell me your Facebook page is absolutely incredible, and the news on there. And I got to once a day I walk by my wife's desk and she's got it on there, and she's scrolling. She's like, "Hey, did you see this?" I'm like, I was working, and so she's watching you all the time, and then she flags me to your stuff. How did you get started in this? Because it's a very unusual thing. Most people do kitten videos and look at what I had to eat. You're like, you know what? We need news out there. Go.
Yeah. I mean, it all started basically for me back in about 2019. I had lost my full-time job. I was a stay-at-home dad with my kids, and I was just kind of looking for, something to do, something to keep me busy. And with my background, I had been involved with the fire service since I was 14 years old.
Right.
And this just kind of came natural to me. And it was something that as I started posting incidents that were going on, it just grew, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger from there. And then COVID hit. And once COVID
everybody was
hit,
trapped in their houses.
Trapped in their house
you into the troposphere there, the stratosphere.
Yeah, and I mean, it was everybody had their phones in their hands and their computers in front of them,
and they're all
nothing
looking
else
for
to
information.
do. And they were just looking for what's going on. And
Wow.
it was a need that I saw that people didn't know, in real time what was going on as far as traffic accidents and fires and things like that.
Right.
And so I started posting, and then before I knew it, it was blowing up. And in July of 2021, I created the page that I currently have now. And it took off, and it went from a few thousand followers to 10,000 followers in a matter of a month or two.
Oh God.
And then it just kept kind of going from there, and it's steadily been growing since then.
Hold that thought. We got to pay some bills. I got to come back. I've now got a million questions for you. So give me 2 minutes to pay some bills, and we're coming back.
Barry Dee is back with All Politics Are Local.
I am back with Mark Walsh. You know him as Irish Eyes, a local independent reporter that is on Facebook. What else are you on, by the way? Facebook, Instagram?
I just started doing TikTok.
I like your webpage, by the way.
Thank you. I have my own website. I'm kind of on pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Just look up Irish Eyes Chesko and you can find me.
And that's Irish with eyes being EYE Z. Well, cool logo, by the way, too. Who designed the logo?
So the logo that I'm currently using right now was designed by a local company in Chester County. And then I have another one that I use that was designed by a friend of mine's daughter.
Okay.
That she designed it for me, and I'm kind of one of those people that I like to change things up.
Yeah, right.
Every once in a while, so it doesn't stay the same very long. But,
well, you can do that because your product sells it. The logo doesn't sell it. Your product, and your product's excellent. And speaking of product, off air, I was talking with Mark, and I said, "What was the first store you did?" He goes, "I don't really remember." He said, "But I do remember the biggest one he did was Cavalcante."
Yeah.
And you were everywhere all the time. Did you get any sleep during that?
No, I had to force myself to go to sleep, and I'm sure my wife is listening to this right now, and she's probably laughing. There were a lot of nights where I would be, at the computer or whatever, and I would be up until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning because it sounded like this is it. We've got him.
Yep.
It's going to be breaking any minute now. And then it didn't happen. So then I would go to sleep for a little while, and then I'd get up and kind of catch up on things and see where we were at. And a lot of times it was radio silence and there was nothing going on, and then all of a sudden you'd have this, almost hysteria again with now he's here or he's over here. So it just kept going on, and then of course, lo and behold, the day that they found him, I was up until about 5 a.m. listening to everything going on, and I said, okay, I don't think they're going to get him, and I forced myself to go to sleep. And then a few hours later, my phone was blowing up, and people were saying, they got him.
You jinxed yourself.
I did. And I was definitely not happy. But I immediately got up and went right to covering it. So
yeah, but you did the bulk of the work. I mean, that was the thing. The whole time it was going on, where they were at, what was going on. I drove through some of those road areas where, like, there was a cop every 100 yards. And they just had it, and they were looking at everything as you went by. I drove through and did a couple videos because it was up my way. I mean, they caught him, I don't know, 3 miles from where I was at. So it was very close. I'm very familiar with all that area. Prizer's, Prizer's facility there. It's, where they sell the tractors and all that stuff, and the appliances. So I'm very familiar with the area. So now I got another question for you. The other day there was an accident on Route 30 bypass.
Yes.
Truck flipped over. It was devastating.
Yes.
I mean, that was. How would you like to be that truck driver that went down over the embankment?
Thank God he was okay.
Yeah, right. Because that's pretty steep. Because that's going down towards Route 282 right there.
Just before it. Yeah, it was literally maybe 20, 30 feet before you got to it.
And that could have been the end for him, because then he would have dropped over the bridge, and it would have been a completely different thing, because the fifth wheel probably would have disconnected and he was slammed down, and he would have been in bad shape. The drone work. Did you do the drone work?
I did.
Did you really?
Yep.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
I gotta tell you, it was so cool. I loved it. So you got to notice on that through some type of whatever, your scanners, your pulse point, whatever, and then you went out there, you raced out there with a drone, and you do that. Now, so like you had a bird's eye view of it. It was perfect. You could see how bad the traffic was backed up and all that. That was absolutely incredible. So from point A to point B, where were you when you got notified of the accident?
So I was at home, and it took me...
We'll call that the Bat Cave.
Yeah, we'll say it took me about 15 minutes to get there, and that was only because, traffic was atrocious already, trying to go through, trying to get through Downingtown, everything like that.
Yeah, so what you ran down through Downingtown and up around through 113 over like Cemetery Hill, Norwood House, something like that?
So no, I actually didn't go down that far. So I went up... towards like where Downingtown Middle School is, and into a neighborhood right there that actually parallels the 30 bypass.
Okay.
And went in there. And
so you launched from the west of the accident and flew east.
Yeah. So I was about a quarter mile or so away. And then that way I have a good line of sight of everything going on.
Right.
And then I can stay out of the way, because obviously that's not. I don't.
That's critical. You want to be away from the action.
Right. I want to be away from it. I don't want to interfere in any sort of way. So this way, it allowed me to stay on the westbound side of the bypass, whereas this was on the eastbound side of the bypass, and I could still get good coverage of everything, and I still had good line of sight of the drone and everything like that. And I don't have to worry about being in anybody's way. And God forbid anything would ever happen with the drone, I'm over top of the woods. So if it happens to come out of the sky, it's going to land in the woods.
That's an interesting point you made. You stayed away from any type of people with that. So if something failed in the drone, it wasn't dropping out of the sky and hitting anybody, you were very careful about the way you ran that. I was very impressed with that. What kind of drone do you use?
I have a DJI, DJI Air.
What's that? What size is that one?
It's small. It's a little tiny one. I don't know the exact dimensions of it, but it's pretty small.
And it's battery operating time?
Yep, battery operating.
And what's the amount of time? It'll run 15
It all
minutes?
depends. On a really cold day like that was that day, and there was some wind, it really sucks the life out of it.
Yeah.
So flying from where I took off to the scene, I was flying into a headwind, so that really slows it down. Typically I can get, if I really, gun it with it, I can go about 20 to 25 miles an hour with it. With this, it was maybe 10 miles an hour because of the wind.
Yeah.
So it really sucks the life out of it. But I still was I was up in the air for a good 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then obviously you have to watch your timer so that you have enough time to get back to where you are.
You can get to the top of Mount Everest. The trick is to get back down.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's all for nothing.
Yep. Yep.
So how much drone work have you ended up doing for stories?
Not a lot.
Okay.
It depends.
Not that much need, right? It's just rare.
It's not that there's not the need, but it all depends on access and the type of incident. Certain incidents I'll do it on. So anything on the bypass, if it's a major incident, I've done a few there because I'm not going to go up on the bypass. I'm not going to drive up there and try and take pictures or video or anything like that.
Not unless you got a death wish.
No. So, if I could utilize the drone to do it, then I will. But if it's something on a side street or something like Lincoln Highway or somewhere like that, it all depends. It really depends on the size of the incident and what exactly we're looking at. Because again, certain things look better from the ground, other things look better from the sky.
Right. Well, bird's eye view, right?
Yeah.
On certain things.
Plus, there's a lot that I have to worry about. So I have to make sure that there's no flight restrictions. With the previous president, with him being home a lot, we were in restricted
TFR
flight area a lot.
Trust me, I'm a pilot.
Yeah.
I was grounded a lot.
Yes.
A lot.
So it and then I also have to worry about if it's something really big. I know that the local news stations may be sending helicopters, so I'm constantly checking the radar on my phone to make sure there's nothing coming that I
never
can get
even
out
would
of
have
the way.
thought of that. That they may be dispatching something,
Plus, in my area, I'm close to the airport there in Chester County or in East Battlefield.
They come right in, run right down through Modena, straight in on an ILS.
Yeah, so I got to watch. There's certain areas I can't fly.
There is instrument landing systems there, Normie.
Yeah, so certain areas I can't fly there, and I know that going into it. Other areas you obviously have to be a little bit more aware of what you're doing.
So, how many stories do you think you typically release in a day? It's slow. Like lately, it's been fairly slow news.
Yeah. On days like today, like we're expecting rain later on this afternoon, it'll vary. It could be 3 to 5. It could be 10 to 15. It really all depends. If it's a snow day, if it's snowing, or if it's high winds or anything like that, it could be more than that. But if it's a bright sunny day, it really all depends.
Might as well go to the beach.
Some days you might only have one. Some days you might not have any. And trust me, there's days where I go 1 or 2 days in a row where I don't have anything. And I'm like, man, people are probably wondering where I'm at. What's going on?
Did Irish Eyes die? What's going on? Is he on vacation? Is he in Hawaii right now?
I wish.
So, what would you like to do with this in the future while you're doing? I mean, you're growing. You're getting a lot more leads on this. Did you want to do investigative journalism while you're as a side thing to release like a series of things like, hey, there was this bar fire, but it was suspicious, and this happened and that happened, and I'm just making that up. I don't know what, but Are you intrigued by that, or do you just like doing the?
I like where I'm at now with
instant gratification.
With just the giving out the information as it is. And, I think my next venture right now is looking at starting a podcast. Because one of the things I like to do is I also like to help in the community. That's a very big thing that's near and dear to me. So I want to start the podcast so I can get different people from different walks of life, different businesses, things like that in the local community that can come on, that can talk about what they do, kind of like how you and I are doing right now.
Right. I was going to say, you're getting your practice in right now, Mark. Right. You're doing well.
And so that's one thing I'd like to do. I also, we're waiting right now to see what happens with TikTok. That might be in the future as well, with maybe doing some almost local news videos, as far as like a recap each day or maybe each week, something like that. So I do have some things on the horizon. I'd also am in the very infant stages of looking at starting my own app, so that people can. The one thing that I hear a lot is you're on Facebook, but I can't look at Facebook when I'm driving.
That's right.
So that doesn't help me, and I understand that. So I want to try and get something where that information can get sent right to you on your phone while you're out driving. You can kind of quick glance at it and say, oh man, there's an accident on the bypass at Route 100. I got to get off so that I don't get stuck in this traffic.
Right.
Because I hear it a lot, and I get a lot of feedback, and the 40,000 plus followers that I have are tremendous, and I do get a lot of great messages and feedback from them on what they like, what they don't like, things that I could change, things that they don't want me to change. I mean, you saw when I posted the teaser the other night about being on this show.
Yeah.
And I asked people, like, what do you think it could possibly be? And there was a ton of really cool things that people said that I was like, that would actually be really neat if I could do that.
Right.
So, I mean, it's great. It's a great community, and it's just something I want to keep expanding on.
Let's head over to a commercial or two. Got to pay the bills again. You know that feeling. And then we're going to come back, talk some more with Mark about Irish Eyes.
Barry Dee is back with All Politics Are Local.
And of course, I'm speaking with the founder of Irish Eyes. That is Mark Walsh, a strikingly handsome man. So, yeah, say that,
I don't know about strikingly handsome.
It is radio. Just work with it.
This is a face that was made for radio.
That's right. Much like Eric. Much like Eric and myself, but we can lie to the public. It's all right. Of course, with yours, there is no lying, man. You got the video, you got everything right there. And so, on your information, the things that you're putting out there, leads you get, how much does your following base, over 40,000 people, how much of that do they send out to you? Like, do you have people go, hey, I got this thing, it's blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. It's absolutely a huge part of it. And if I didn't have that, I don't think the page would be where it is right now. I have quite a few people that reach out to me all the time that I'm friendly with, or that I am friends with in everyday life, that will reach out to me and say, hey, did you hear about this going on? Or just this morning, I had somebody message me and say, hey, I don't know if you know or not, there's an accident in East Bradford Township. A lot of times I do already know about it.
Right.
But I tell people all the time, and they'll apologize to me and say, I'm sorry to bother you. You're not bothering me. You are helping me.
You're helping me, right. I may know it, I may not know it.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, you don't know if I know or not. There may be that time where, I got away from the scanner, or I'm away from the computer, or I'm away, and I didn't hear it. You're helping me.
That's right.
So I appreciate it. Like, I tell people all the time, message me anytime. It could be 4:00 in the morning. I want you, because if I am asleep and
throw 100
I don't
darts,
hear
if
it,
5 of them stick, it's 5 of them that stick.
Yeah, at least I know about it.
That's
and I can get it. And even if you don't have the information about exactly what's going on, you could still send me messages, say, hey, there's something going on in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can kind of investigate it from there and find out and go back and listen. And I have that happen a lot too. I'll have people reach out to me all the time and say, hey, do you have any idea what was going on in this area this morning? I saw a lot of fire trucks, or I saw an ambulance, and I can go back and I can listen. So that's a huge part of it.
And then you can report back on what happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not instantaneous, but people want to know. It's still information.
Exactly. And you'll see it from time to time. Most of my or actually all of my posts that I put up, I always have the date and time on there so that people can look at it and say, okay, this is when this happened. But there are those times where I do miss things. Things happen. And I mean, I'm a one-man show for the most part. So I have one other person that kind of part-time works with me,
right?
That he will help me from time to time if I ask him, or if I say I'm out driving and something's going on, I can message him real quick and be like, hey, if you're available, could you please post this for me? Because I can't, or it's going to be a little while before I can, and he'll help me out. But for the most part, it's me. So I do miss things. I'm only human. And I try not to.
I meant to call you about the Louisiana Purchase, but that's already been done. So we're pretty much, Thomas Jefferson sewed that one up. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry I was late with that one.
A little bit.
So do you cover events? Do you ever cover events or anything like that? Or is that something out of your realm?
No, I do. I absolutely cover events. I get that from people a lot too. They'll email me and they'll say, hey, do you mind posting this for me? We have this going on. It's a fundraiser or just some sort of special event. By all means, I tell people, listen, I have other things that I'm posting as well, but I will get to it. Just send it to me. And if for some reason you don't see it in 1 or 2 days, message me again and remind me.
What about going out to the events? Do you ever do any of that or not? I mean, that's time consuming. That's way time consuming. It is time consuming.
There are a few that I have done here and there. I try not to, and it's not that I don't want to.
Right.
It's that I feel it's one of those things where if I start doing that, I'm going to be missing other things. So again, just me. So
you start
I try and split my time.
You go to Good Neighbor Day, and next thing you know, there's something a way away that you're like, oh no, and now my car's and I can't get out there. And
but like if it's a family event, especially if it's a family event, if it's something that I can bring my wife and my kids to, like we always attend the Coatesville Christmas Parade. That's something that we do all the time.
Nice.
So a lot of times I'll live stream that so that people that can't go out or people that don't want to go out and sit in the cold.
You do the Grand Prix?
No, I have not. I
think we're going to cover that one. We got to do that together, you and me.
That would
cover that. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I do want to do that.
Go do the Grand Prix, interview some of the drivers, talk about the cars.
Yeah,
that'd be a fun one.
I can't believe I haven't done it. I literally live 5 minutes away.
The smell of the racing fuel is so awesome.
Yeah,
I live for that, man.
Yeah, that is definitely something that's on my bucket list to do. But that I've never done the Westchester Christmas Parade.
Yeah,
that's a little too crowded
it was cold.
for me.
It was cold last year. Steve did it. Steve, who's on Thursdays with Eric, he covered that. He said it was cold.
Yeah, we did the Downingtown Parade this year. The Downingtown Christmas Parade. That was a cold one too. We try and get to as many as possibly as I can, but like I said, one person, so have to divide my time as best I can, especially between that and family.
Sure. So we got about a minute and a half to wrap things up here. So why don't we talk about it? People that don't know Irish Eyes, I just can't explain how much you're missing just to have it on Facebook, just to see what's happening in the area and seeing things like that crash. It was, really interesting to see because, it was a truck crash. Okay, it was truck crashes. This one was on its side, and it was a mess, and luckily there was nobody in the car. I guess he kind of sideswiped it. Or you know what happened with that, by the way? Was there anything real brief?
It sounds like, I don't know exactly, and I don't want to speculate.
Right, sure.
From what I've heard is that he had a swerve due to another vehicle, and that
was the end.
And then he hit this disabled vehicle that was parked on the shoulder that may or may not have been partially out onto the road. I'm not sure.
Oh, it's partially out. I changed a tire for a guy one time in that very section, and I changed it from the other side of the guardrail.
I don't blame you.
It was bad. It was very dangerous. So, yes, very dangerous here. I said to my wife, remember that time I did that for that Korean vet? That was where it was right there. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. So, okay, so web address is?
www.irisheyes.com.
Outstanding. Facebook is?
Irish Eyes Chesco. Everything else is all Irish Eyes Chesco.
And that's EYEZ. And it's all run on, right?
All run on, yep.
Run on. That's it. Any last things you want to say real quick before I do my closing? You got like 10 seconds.
Nope. Just that I appreciate everybody that follows me. I appreciate all the leads that I get from everybody and the support. And hopefully you all just enjoy everything that I do.
You're so humble and you're a legend, man. I'm telling you, people love you, dude. They really do. So, hey, thanks for coming on. Hang out. And I'm going to do my close here real quick. It's time to wrap up the show. I would like to thank my guest, Mark Walsh from Irish Eyes, for coming on and talking about his modern-day media. This is the type of stuff that we're evolving into now. It's people like him that have always been around, the citizen reporter. But today there are so many alternative ways to deliver that news, and he has done a phenomenal job, and I applaud your hard work and efforts. Thank you so much, Eric Clambera, my producer here at All Politics Are Local. He is the hardest working guy here at WCHE Studios. He never quits, even in sickness and in health. And as Eric always says,
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
that always cracks me up. Mondays and Wednesdays, Eric and I are together for the morning show. Be sure to check out this week when I tell everyone how much bail was for him this time.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I bet you are. Hey, listen to local radio like right here on WCHE. We have your back. You think satellite radio cares about you? They care about that monthly recurring charge on your credit card bill. That's what they care about. We are Chester County, all of us. Well, not a few of those Delco interlopers like I'm flanked by them today. But whatever, they integrate with us pretty well. We'll keep them. Support local businesses. Run out today and pick up a piano for your kid at Taylor's Music Store and Studios right across the street from the WCHE Studios at 116 West Gay Street in Westchester. We will thank you. Taylor's Music will thank you. And your kid will thank you. Another shameless plug for a local business. Local businesses are your neighbors and your friends. Support those that sponsor WCHE and Irish Eyes for that matter. They are our community, and if you don't have community, you got nothing. Hey, if you like my show, be sure to take the time to send a nice note to WCHE at WCHE1520.com. If you don't like the show,
You can't handle the truth!
that's right. As always, thank you to the Princess of Westchester Airwaves, Donna Saul, the general manager of WCHE. You know, just the other day, she was telling me how much she cares about me and my family. In fact, when I told her I was going to need a pay raise, she said to me, she said, Barry, you got a really nice family. It'd be a shame if something happened to them. Be sure to like and follow the WCHE Facebook page where you can keep up with all that's happening around town and in the county. You can also see my updates and videos on both my Facebook page, which is WCHE All Politics Are Local with Barry Dee, and my YouTube channel, All Politics Are Local with Barry Dee. Today's intro and outro music is from Chicago Transit Authority from their album of the same name with their hit song, Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is?, which was a Billboard Hot 100 hit that made number 7 in 1970. The band had to change their name to just Chicago after legal action threatened by the original and actual Chicago Transit Authority. And the final advice of the day, it's often said that knowledge is power. We're overwhelmed with information in this internet age. Knowledge is really just knowledge at this point. It's the quality of the knowledge that can create wisdom. Wisdom, ladies and gentlemen, wisdom is power. Wisdom is what one should strive for. I'm Barry Dee for All Politics Are Local, and thanks for listening.